Greetings, travelers. We're gonna do the eyeshadow palette tag today, the second one. I know I haven't actually done the first one. That'll come later. So you're gonna get number 2 first, and then you're gonna get number 1 probably after this. So let's get started. If you don't know, this tag was started by Ali and Samantha March. I will leave both of their videos down below doing this. It's a great tag. I'm really excited to do it. First one is the all-time favorite. I think this one's always gonna be the same. It's never gonna change. It's the first palette that I bought when I first got back into makeup, and that's the Colourpop and Sailor Moon Pretty Guardian palette. I adore this palette so much. It's had mixed reviews because people are like, oh, it's not really that colorful, it's not Sailor Moon. Like, to me, this is very reminiscent of the backgrounds of the Sailor Moon show rather than the actual Sailor Scouts themselves. And I just really like how soft this color story is and pretty, especially with this pop of yellow. Yellow is one of my favorite colors to wear on my eyes. So yeah, a lot of this is what I was expecting, and I really love it. So yeah, this is my all-time favorite. The next one is the new favorite. Lo and behold, it's another pop of yellow, something of a pattern in my all-time favorites. It is the Odins Eye Alma One palette. I got this for Black Friday and I just loved the look that I came out with for this, with a little like pop of yellow in the inner corner. It's so beautiful. It's such a really lovely palette. All of the shimmers are stunning. You can really deepen out a look with this. There's just a really wide shade of different like berry tones along with those yellows. So yeah, I really love this. I think they did a fantastic job with it, and it is my new favorite neutral palette, I guess. My new favorite palette, the Alma One. A palette that I keep for the memories. I also really love this palette, but I'm going to keep it for the memory because I remember this is one of the first palettes I got when I really started watching makeup YouTube, like beauty YouTube, like pretty religiously. And it was actually Mel Thompson's video that really sticks in my brain vividly as one of the first videos that I started, like one of the first videos I watched when I first got started. And that was the Frozen 2 and Colourpop collection, because I had gotten this. I was super into Frozen 2. I'm still really into Frozen 2. But Mel had done a video on these 2 palettes, and I remember watching her video right before I got this, just trying to get some ideas for what to do with them and like really how far the palette could go. So yeah, I keep this for the memory. I also really love the palette. It's very unique. It's one of the most unique color stories that I've seen, and it works really well for me. I know it also got some mixed reviews, but yeah, I keep this for the memories, and I'm always going to keep it for the memories just because, yeah, Mel got me into makeup YouTube and makeup in general, so I keep this for her. Because for whatever reason, watching her videos on those 2 palettes is like one of the most vivid memories that I have in my makeup doing career. Yeah. An underrated palette. It did get some love when it first released, but I haven't seen as much love as it really deserves, and I've spoken about this one before. It's the Colourpop Malibu Barbie palette. This palette is just so good. Like I told you before, this is the good kush. This is the same formula that they used for the I Love Sarah He Through My Eyes palette, and it is amazing. It is amazing. Again, with the pop of yellow, but this is like, if you like 70s, this is really fantastic for that. It's a lot of bright colors, yellow, orange, pink, blue. You can make some really beautiful looks with this. It's a very versatile palette. You can do a lot with it. It's super underrated. Like the quality is top notch for Colourpop. Like it's their best formula. And the color story is just super unique. Like it just screams Barbie. If you really like Barbie, like get this. It's amazing. It's so good and so underrated. Like not enough people talked about this when it came out, and I loved it. It's phenomenal. Not a favorite, but I can't get rid of it. Miss Soft Glam herself. Not a big fan of what ABH has been coming out with recently, but this, it's just such a useful palette to have. Like it's just so basic, but in the best way. There's so much you can do with this. It really covers like the entire breadth of the neutrals, other than like maybe cool tones. Well, no, you have like that one. That's pretty cool toned, at least from what I see. Dusty Rose, it's pretty freaking cool toned. But yeah, like this is just everything you could want from a neutrals palette, and I can't get rid of it for that reason. Like it's not my favorite palette in my collection, but I just can't get rid of it. I just can't. It's just too useful to have. My favorite collab this year, or I don't know if it's this year or just in general, like in general, my favorite collab from my previous video, because I've done like influencer collab palettes, my influencer palettes I was ranking, and a collab one was my top, and it's still my top, but I'm adding 3 new ones. 3, it kind of gives it away. But the Club Nebula from earlier this year, last January, it's been a year now, this is my favorite collab ever. It's just phenomenal. It's an amazing palette. Angie did an amazing job with this. It's very different. Each row you can create an entirely different look out of. There's cool tones, bright colors, warm tones, literally everything you could want out of a colorful palette. This is it. So yeah, this is still my favorite collab, but I'm also adding, tied to this one, another collab, and that is the Odins Eye Legendary Diversa collection. I could not choose one because that's mean. I don't want to rank them because they came out together, and to me, they come and go together. It's all one collab with 3 different influencers. So we have JUDY's, which is this really pretty fall toned dream with reds and greens and all kinds of different neutrals here. We have Tina's, the Hummingbird, which is very summery, lots of really bright colors, a lot you can do with that one. And then Annette's, which is just grungy winter tones, which is just beautiful. I really love this one. I really love all of them. This is probably my favorite collab release this year. I tried a few, but this was probably my favorite collab release this year, and definitely tied for the #1 place with Angie's Kaleidos palette. Just beautiful. They did a fantastic job. My 2021 fave. So I don't know if this is like just my favorite palette that I used in 2021 or the palette that was released in 2021. I'm taking it to mean the palette that was released in 2021 that is my favorite release of 2021. And that is the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. I love everything about this. The packaging is beautiful. The inside of the palette is beautiful. The looks that I created with this were beautiful. It is super easy to use, way more pigmented in the tones that I expected to not be pigmented, like these pale pinks. I thought that it was gonna show up like a little goblin fart and then wisp away into the wind, but it actually is very pigmented. It was very, very pigmented, and I was very impressed. So yeah, just color story wise, usability wise, packaging wise, this was my favorite release of 2021 that was not a collab. Otherwise, there would be some repeats in here because my favorite release was the collab that Odins Eye did with the 3 influencers, but not that one. This is the next best thing. A palette that I did not expect to love. I knew exactly which one this was. It is the Kaleidos Escape Pod palette. I didn't buy this for a long time because I did not think I was going to like it at all. I thought there were too many repeating shades in here. I thought that it just wasn't gonna work well for me. The color story was a little bit questionable, but then I got it because I was curious, and let me tell you, I feel like a fairy princess whenever I wear this, like an alien fairy princess, because it's such a unique palette. I love it so, so much. It's very usable. The shimmers are gorgeous. And even the tones in here that are similar looking, like those 2 kind of orangey looks and then that green and that green, they actually show up really different on the eye. Like I was worried they were gonna be too similar, but they actually do show up quite different on the eye. And you can actually get a neutral look out of this as well. So there's these 3 neutral shades in here that you can top with like a pale pink shimmer or whatever to get a neutral look out of this. So this is a very, like, there's a lot you can do with this palette. It's beautiful. I love all of the looks that I've ever created with this. It's just, I did not expect to love this as much as I do. And really, it's now one of my favorite palettes because it's just, I didn't expect to love it so much. It's wonderful and also very difficult to close. Palettes for me that spark joy. The 2 palettes in my collection that spark the most joy, you probably know already what this is gonna be. It's these. I love these so much. Not only because like it took a lot of patience and determination to get these, because I bought them after the craze after they were released and everything sold out. This one just magically Sephora managed to get it back in stock. And this one I got from the Melt website when it again magically just came back in stock and they had like a bunch of them left over. But yeah, just based on like how I got these, like how like the universe literally just everything aligned, the stars aligned and I managed to get them, but also just they're just so beautiful. Like looking at them, the color stories themselves, the way that the palettes work together, it's just, they're beautiful. They're worth framing. Like that's the Muerte and Vida. They're just so stunning. Like they're just the most beautiful palettes I think I own. Like in my whole collection, just aesthetically, these are the most beautiful palettes in my collection and they spark so much joy. They're gonna get framed when I can't use them as eyeshadows anymore. They're gonna get framed and put up on a wall somewhere because they're just too beautiful to look at. We're down to the last two categories. The newest palette in my collection is the It's Frickin' Bats palette. It's frickin' bats. I love Halloween. This color story is just super unique. I really love this. It does remind me of like Halloween, specifically Beetlejuice. More than the actual Beetlejuice palette reminded me of Beetlejuice, this reminds me of Beetlejuice. My only critique is that this dark plummy purple shade tends to show up black whenever you use it with any of the other colors in here. So for me, it doesn't show up really like a plummy purple. It shows up more like a black, which is fine. I love all the rest of the shades and you can kind of make it work. But yeah, this is the newest palette in my collection. I've used it a single time so far, but I was really impressed. The quality is really good. The shimmers are phenomenal. The shimmers are so good. And just the overall aesthetic, real good. Amazing. Now my first used palette in 2022, I got back from Vancouver. I went to my drawer full of my makeup and I was like, what am I gonna use? I had a bunch of stuff that had come in before the holidays and before I left for Vancouver. So there was like a pile of things that I was like, I might as well use these for the first time so that way I can try them, post my looks, blah, 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 blah. And the first thing that I used when I got back was the Huda Beauty Triumph of Venus palette. This is the first palette that I used in 2022. The look that I created with it is up on my Instagram, go check it out. And I was actually able to use every single shade in this palette for that look. That's what I really like to do with 9pan palettes, just to see like the scope of like the usability of the palette. Like, can I use every single shade in the palette in one single look? And I actually was able to do that with the It's Frickin' Bats palette as well from Batty Bean and Trout, because that's like my peak usability for a palette, is if I can use every single shade in one single look. And I'm happy to say that I was able to with this palette as well. I love doing that with 9pan eyeshadow palettes. It's a really great challenge to just push yourself to try and use every single shade in the palette. And this one worked really, really well for it. I loved it. It's a beautiful palette. I am a sucker for art themed anything. And that is it for the eyeshadow palette number 2. Again, I don't have a number 1. That's coming later. We're doing it a little bit backwards. But I hope you like this video. Thanks for hanging out with me as usual, and I will see you in the next one.